Welcome to the BLTnT podcast. I'm your host, Matt Loria, serving up real stories of business, life, technology, and transformations. You'll hear from interesting people about big changes from career shifts to life-altering decisions and the innovations that help make it all happen. It's about sharing those light bulb moments, pivot points, challenges overcome, and the journeys that inspire us to think differently. If you're on the lookout for insights to propel you forward, stories that resonate, or just a bit of inspiration on your next BLTnT move, you're in the right place. Let's dig in. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the BLTnT podcast. I'm Matt Loria, and I'm here at one of my happiest places on earth at Nub's Knob, sitting in the basement at the Brown Bagger. And to my immediate left is Elise Fisher, the owner and chairperson of Nub's Knob.
Hello, Matt. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be invited and included in this.
It's your place. You granted permission and were invited. So this is great. I'm glad you're here. So you're a mom, grandma, daughter, philanthropist, and not just a philanthropist with finances, but with also big time commitments. I know with the McLaren Northern Michigan Hospital, which is we have some common friends over there. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the chairperson at Nub's Knob Ski Area. Right. So you're not even busy. I'm
not busy at all. No, I love everything I do. And I love being a part of this community in so many ways. As you mentioned, my serving on the hospital board and the foundation board. I recently just became chair of the Harbor Springs Festival of the Book Board. And I volunteer wherever I can. I'm part of Topanexus in Harbor Springs and some other things. And it's great to be a part of this community. I actually did the same kind of thing when I was living in the Detroit area. And you meet wonderful people, and you learn and you grow and give back at the same time.
That's amazing. What were some of the associations that you were, or organizations you were associated with in the Detroit area?
When I was living in Detroit, I was very involved in the Detroit Institute of Arts. I was on several auxiliaries. I took leadership positions in those auxiliaries. Our local garden club, Oakland Family Services, and some other organizations of that type. And very involved in my kids' schools.
Okay, great. Yep. Great. Catholic schools, right?
Yes.
Okay. Promoting the charge.
Yes.
So walk me back. Let's give people a little bit of color as to kind of just your journey, however deep you want to go, up to here you are sitting here as the chairperson of Nub's Knob. So I don't know if you want to start, as a child, before motherhood, where you want to start, but I mean, we'll get to a lot of stuff too. So okay. So don't feel any pressure.
Okay. I have to say, at this stage in my life, it's reflective to look back to see where I am now, especially in this industry, in this business. I never knew that I would be in this position. As a little girl, I applied to one college, University of Vermont. And back in the day, you could apply to one college and assume you're going to get in. It's not the case today. But anyway, I applied to University of Vermont. I got in because I wanted to ski. I was not a competitive skier, but I knew I wanted to ski. So my interest was sparked as a young person. And my dad actually brought me up north when I was 6 because he wanted me to learn, even though he was not an avid skier. He thought it would be a good thing. So I've always had it in my blood, I guess, recreational skiing. And I never knew I would be in this position like I just mentioned. But I can look back and see the progression and the leadership, and am very grateful for how I got here because I worked into it as a family, as a daughter of a father who, as I said, was not an avid skier, but he was really good in business and vision and thinking, and he fell into this industry kind of by chance. Just knowing people in the community, how one thing leads to another. And he acquired Nub's Knob in 1977, and he learned a lot along the journey. As most everyone knows, he was in automotive, and here he is now in the ski business, having to make snow and make different kinds of decisions. He fortunately was really good friends with the general manager at Boyne Highlands, and he wanted to come over. And he did, and he brought along his understudy with him. So I was really fortunate to have witnessed this as a college student at that time in my life, knowing I loved to ski, but just watching his business acumen
Mm-hmm.
and how he handled things. And I still attribute a lot of our success today is how we treat people and how we grow our organization in a very organic way.
Mm-hmm.
So here again, I'm looking back and looking where I am now, and I think that was very instrumental in how I deal with things today. And we have managed growth and managed change, and at Nubs Knob, we upgrade and improve things all the time, but our customer doesn't necessarily know it. They want to come back to what they left last season. They want the hot curly fries, the cold beer, the great soup. And I hate to even mention it, but this Oreo fluff that Ralph puts out on the shelves,
Oh yeah.
you know.
My
about-
kids are addicted.
Yes.
There's a support group for it for children addicted to Oreo fluff.
I know. And it breaks my heart because Ben and I are more healthy eaters, but that Oreo fluff goes out the door. So anyway, that's kind of how I look back and look forward, and I attribute a lot of the culture of this company to its origins from my father.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was mentioning that, well, to you and then to Ben and to others that I speak to, that the feeling here, I never feel like a customer here. I always feel like part of the organization. And he said, the essence of things is that the season pass holders, they really feel like they're owners, and that's it's really an interesting culture that's developed. And I guess I don't know if that's the case at every other ski area. Do you have a comparative? Are there others that have that same level of kind of buy-in that you have?
I don't have a comparative other than when I talk to our customers, especially customers that maybe are a member of a private club somewhere. They feel like they have the same feeling here.
I would agree.
Yes. And so that makes me feel, it's very complimentary of them to say that. And I think it's our size, and we just, we take care of all the departments equally the same. And yeah, people feel like it's a private club.
Yeah, I would say it.
And not in a bad
feels
way,
just
in a good way.
No,
Yeah.
no. Ben had mentioned almost that the focus, if you put the focus first on the season pass holders and you get yourself kind of that 1,000 fans, that 1,000 raving fans, everything else really seems to fall in line, and I think that's embodied here. I see it happen. What do you think about that?
I totally agree with that. And it goes back to our staff too. I think they're bought into the whole program too. In this community, as you know, in this era, people are searching for employees, and we just have them knocking at our door because of the culture and how we treat people and empower them and enhance their environment to work in. And I think we're really blessed that way.
Yeah, but I think that doesn't happen by accident. And I was talking to Ben about the fact that the culture, and let's start it at the top with ownership, and then let's bring it all the way down to the little kid on the hill. The little kid on the hill here can go out by themselves as soon as the parent is ready, to kind of let them go. And the culture here fosters one of that. It is not abnormal. No one's looking at someone and saying, "Oh my gosh, you let your kid go at Nubs." No, as soon as the kid's ready, you kind of let them go, and it gives them that first sense of freedom that Ben was talking about. And I kind of walk that back up the ladder all the way back up to ownership and go, okay, there's something special here that starts there that allows that to happen for that little kid. And I'd like to talk about with you some observations that I have, which is when I'm here and I'm watching you as the owner walk around, I'm not watching the staff walk around on eggshells. It's not like, oh, Elise is walking through. Elise, the whispers going on. You're another person here. Obviously, you'll do anything. I mean, I see you pick up trays in the cafeteria or whatever if there's one there. But where does that come from in, whether it was the influence of your dad or, things that you picked up along the way? How do you continue to maintain that where at the top, no eggshells, and instilling that all the way down to where that kid is safe and can go experience some freedom.
I will comment on that. And first, I want to bring my mother into this too. It wasn't all my dad; it was my mother and father. They were a team, so I have to.
And we should note your brother, sister, and your mother and you
Yes,
are
stockholders.
all the
Yes,
stockholders.
Yes, and so I want to give a shout out to my mother too. But we were raised to treat people equally and as human beings, and I think that starts with all of us at the top. And I take a lot of interest in all of my employees. I try to know, obviously I can't remember all their birthdays and all that kind of thing, but I need to know who their spouses are, who their children are. If one of their children just graduated from a particular school, I try to put that in my memory bank because it means a lot to me to be able to talk to them about that kind of thing. Because if someone asks me about my children, I want to say, well, thank you for asking. You know?
Right.
So it kind of starts there, and I work at it really hard. And I try to make face with every employee, whether it's a snowmaker or someone in rental or the general store, and really take interest in them. And I think it comes back to me because they seem to be interested more in their job maybe. And because we don't have a high rate of turnover of employees, when you do send your little toddler out on the purple lift or now the new space worm, all the employees kind of know who these kids are. So I think that's another reason why they feel safe. It's still part of the big family. And I've had that experience with my own grandchildren who don't live here, but when they come back for the winter, all the staff is, hi, Hazy, hi, Helen, can't wait to see you on the bunny hill or, whatever. And they remember, they care. So it's, whatever starts at the top does go all the way through.
Yeah, them feeling cared for allows them to.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Just like hurt people type of thing. Cared for people, care for people.
Care for people, yeah.
That's interesting. We had chatted a little bit beforehand, and we were talking about books. What are any of the books or podcasts or shows or anything that are maybe kind of shaping your thinking or reinforcing or changing or whatever it might be doing with you?
So even though I'm involved in the Harbor Springs Festival of the Book, I can't say I'm an avid reader, but I am reading more. And when you asked me that off camera, my first reaction, and I hope everyone's listening to this, was Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And I listened to it because it was his voice speaking. Now, I can't say that was the only book in my life that made an impression or whatever.
You did mention, though, and I'll make sure
Yes.
Father Roman knows that the Bible was the first one. And then you said...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're putting words in my mouth, but that's okay. That's okay. No, there's lots of, but I think that was a more recent book that I listened to, and it was interesting.
What
Actually,
did you pick up from it was a wild childhood.
Wild road, but he still had that center core that drove him to where he is today. And you can deviate and go all over the map, but if you have that center, you know where you're going, and he respects his mother to this day.
Yes.
And even his father, who was a little out there, there was still that respect and that loyalty. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what was interesting, because you see him as a celebrity and you're like, this guy, what's going on? But there's some depth there.
For sure.
And some strength.
What did they call? They were calling it like outlaw logic.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there any outlaw logic in the Fisher family?
I won't comment on that. But you asked me about another book. So what I'm reading, another book I'm reading right now or listening to, and the author is reading it, is Barbra Streisand.
Oh, okay.
Now that's another really interesting. Now I'm older than, older than some of you all, but you go back to her beginning. She was, buying clothes in the thrift shops and trying to, she didn't know if she wanted to be an actress or a singer. That's another interesting one. I'm really into historical biographies and everything. That would be my go-to for reading and listening. Yeah,
I enjoy them too. I just enjoy and I'm gravitated towards anyone who's a deep thinker. And not, as soon as I can recognize that there's something below the surface, I get real excited and want to learn more and want to talk to somebody or want to read their book. And so that was kind of the same thing about Matthew McConaughey's book, where it was like, wow, you
It was
just
kind of
get
shocking.
you get a couple, chapters in this and you're like, this is really interesting. And
Yeah.
his ability to articulate was pretty remarkable,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll have to, so I'm a book listener more than I am a book
Okay.
reader. And actually it's pretty much your fault because I have to drive up here.
I know.
I have to drive a lot. So I end up listening to a lot of books. And so my older kids and my younger kids both have been exposed to a lot of audiobooks.
Okay, well, that's good.
Because of this ride. So yes, you're responsible for a lot of miles on the Yukon. And
I did that for many years, so I can appreciate it.
yeah,
It's good quality time with your family.
It is. I mean, you get to
They
lock
can't-
them into the car and you get to talk to them. And as long as you shut the screens off, you can get some of their attention.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those are the most fun rides up,
They're
with the
great.
kids and just the laughing and the stuff they come up with. So you have any memorable ones that you could repeat?
I
in
do.
public?
And if my son is going to watch this podcast, the two of us drove up when he was in first grade, and he got really into his phonics book. I don't know what they call him at the time, but he got into his little workbook that he was doing in first grade. And he was so into it, in 4 hours, he completed the whole thing.
Oh.
And he got in trouble because he was only supposed to do the first 2 chapters or something like that. And we laughed about it because he just got so into it. But it was just weekend after weekend. And a lot of the times we would, 2 moms, myself and another, would put our kids all in the back of one car and drive up together. And at the end of the season, we would count how many French fries were under the seats because, they get thrown out under the seats. And then we clean our car like in April and go, oh my gosh, how many times do we stop at West Branch? How many times do we get, the fries and whatnot? So there was a lot of good times.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have too many fun trips with my cousins and brother and sister, coming up. And West Branch is
the stop.
It's the stop. And I remember some incidents with young boys, ketchup packets in a bathroom, and
Oh yeah.
lots of trouble. So never arrested though. So they don't arrest 9-year-olds in West Branch, which is good.
I've been hearing a lot lately about the knock. When an employee knocks on your office door and says, "Got a minute?" and you immediately know it's some sort of IT incident. But Oxium IT can help. Whether you're having a problem, need consulting, an upgrade, or a managed IT approach, they focus on preventing cyber attacks and proactive solutions that deliver results. My friend Matt Loria and everyone at Oxium are ready to help before or after you get the knock. Visit Oxium.com and let Oxium IT help you outsmart chaos.
So, you're in a multi-generational business, and the majority of our viewers are typically CEOs and leaders from kind of mid-market organizations. Okay. And, a lot of people are in family business. And I think we know the statistics are against us in terms of, how many transitions does this place actually make? But you are truly a legacy organization. I mean, you treat it as such in your management style. How do you feel like you're actually, before I go there, let me say something different for you is, and I don't know if I mentioned this already. I know I've thought it 1,000 times, is that it feels like you are stewards more than you are owners of this place. Does that
makes really good sense.
resonate?
Yes.
It resonates well.
Yes, it resonates well.
And so, okay, your dad Walter. Well, first of all, the original owners created something special.
Right.
Your dad kept something special and then added special to it. You're continuing to do that same thing. How do you feel like? What do you feel like the longevity is for a place like this to truly maintain? And do you think it can last into G3, G4?
I'm hoping it lasts into G3 and G4. I like what you just said a minute ago about we're stewarding this organization or this area. I think that's a really appropriate word. I think the third generation organically will come up through the ranks and kind of find their way. My brother, sister, and I all share in equal exposure and equal opportunity for any of the kids. And before I get into what I think is happening, I want to make a statement that my brother Greg, said many years ago, and maybe my dad even said it, but my brother keeps repeating it. And we love this business as a family, but when it ever distracts us to a point where we can't sit down for Christmas dinner, then we're done. So that kind of reinforces how we all work together, and it's worked really well. But that's
Okay.
kind of the underlying statement.
Okay. That would be
So-
that would be the parachute.
That would be, yes, yep. So far it's working. My children are the oldest, and they were both very good ski racers. They're all state 4 years in a row at Marion Brother Ice. My son, his senior year, did win state championship in giant slalom.
Oh, wow.
First Brother Ice boy to ever win a state championship. And so this is just part of their,
Their
what
DNA.
they do.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I don't push or pressure, but I inform them of what's going on from what's current event in the ski business, so to speak, and my management style. They also were fortunate to know my dad and how he did things. And a lot of times, if the decision is to be made or something, it's like, what would Walter do? And we look at each other and kind of chuckle. They are showing interest just on their own. And I think I mentioned to you last week, my son Stuart, just out of curiosity, wanted to shadow a snow farmer.
Okay. Can you explain what a snow farmer is, just in case there's just general business people who don't know the ski business?
So a snow farmer is a very dedicated group of people, employees, that go out any time of night and make snow. That entails shifts from 3 to midnight, midnight to 8, 8 to 3, etc. And they are geared up, and they are monitoring our over 180 ski guns all night long, all day long. The temperature has to be a certain temperature. They have to move the guns around depending on the wind. They have to check the pond levels as we are drawing water out of our pond. They're breaking ice off of the chairlifts that we create snow on by mistake, not ice, hard snow off the chairlifts that we kind of blast with snow. It's a very grueling, cold, amazing opportunity and job. So Stuart he was just curious and wanted to shadow. So he drove up from Detroit and joined the 3 o'clock to midnight shift, and then was so into it, stayed from midnight to 8. And he was just blown away, not only by the crew and their devotion, but just the expertise and the skill that goes into making our snow. We take great pride in our snow, and he was very taken by just the whole mechanics of it, but the people, how they support, and they're out there freezing, and they take such pride in the quality too.
Wow.
It was pretty neat. So that's what a snow farmer does.
That's neat to
Yeah.
be able to see that from
Yes.
the inside like
He has
that.
a whole different appreciation.
Well, and you said he even trained to be a firefighter as
He
well,
did.
so he knows what
Yes. And he said
grueling
this was,
hard work type of
Yes.
activity can be.
Yes. Yeah. So, and my
Interesting.
daughter, who lives in Denver, Logan, she's equally as interested in the industry, but of course she's not here, so she can't really participate as much as she'd like to. But when she's here, she's here. She's very aware and has really great ideas and helps balance some of my thinking too.
Okay.
So I appreciate that.
How would you identify your thinking might land? Is there a word that kind of maybe describes? And you could even start with your dad and say, okay, hey, when you say, hey, what would Walter do?
Mm-hmm.
How did he kind of go about processing in his head when he was dealing with a business challenge versus maybe how you do?
He would capitalize and support things that worked, that he knew were going to work. He also financially would be the resource for any equipment we ever needed. But in a very thoughtful way and a very realistic way. He he might not look at the aesthetics like I might look at some of the aesthetics. And I like working with Ben a lot because he can do both. He can look at the groomers and the snow guns and know the mechanics of it and the functionality and the efficiencies. But we have fun, for example, when we had to redo the bar this past summer. We did new countertops and new signage, and he gets really into that too. So my dad was more, let's give him the best equipment to make the best product and treat our employees, the best we can. I'm a little more aesthetic and kind of looking at the whole space. That's when we redid this brown bag room. And we've done some of the things upstairs, some new tables and chairs and whatnot. And we redid the restrooms. So that's kind of where I am to kind of keep it a little more aesthetically pleasing and up to date. Generation 3, being my children's generation, they're looking at it more from the experience, the marketing of it. It was actually my son who, we were talking about it a few years ago, and lift tickets used to be the best margins in the business. Now the season pass is bringing in so many more people. So when you look at it from a business point, you would say, but Mom, look, yeah, you have more margin on a lift ticket, but if you sell more season passes, people are coming. So that whole paradigm kind of shifted a little bit. And so he is into thinking like that more, and more of the experience. And with my daughter having 2 young little girls, she's looking at it from the ease of getting into the getting the kids dressed and getting them on the Space Worm, getting them on the Purple, the ease of entry into the sport. So that would be where we'll sit down and have a conversation, and I'm thinking, oh, this would be kind of cool. And they're like, well, no, did you think about, getting the skis off the car? And
so you mix your look at aesthetics and their look at kind of utility
and experience,
especially from a family's perspective.
Yes.
You mix those together, and that's where we kind of see the Gen 3 sort of viewpoint coming in, but kind of watching that kind of evolve, right? But it all started with the quality piece of Walter's piece, right? To you kind of, let's shine it up even more, and then let's make it easy to use. So I like the progression, right? You can see the growth, and you can see the responsible nature of the growth here, right? I mean, one of the things we talked about with Ben that I'm sure resonates with you, that I'd love to hear your perspective on, is this is one of those places you can't change it too much, too fast. The people have to grow along. Those 1,000 fans have to come along for the ride,
right?
And really buy into it.
And that's where Generation 3 can bring in trendier things that hopefully are sustainable. And that's what I'm looking at them for. Now, I have to go back and just make one mention about COVID. That was a hard time.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you, we learned a lot. Some of the things, obviously with a lot of companies, but we're in the service food business, and it was tough. And but we learned a lot. Everybody learned a lot from that, and some of the things we still are adhering to. What
would be one main lesson? I know Ben and I talked a lot about this, and the learnings and the things that came out of it, and the things that have stuck today. But what would be one that stands out to you?
People are eating outside more, not because of the COVID factor, but I think they had to eat outside then, and now they're realizing this isn't so bad.
It's enjoyable.
It's very enjoyable, yeah, and it's healthier, and it's more family oriented and whatnot.
Oh, good point. Yeah. I didn't think about that. One thing I did want to make sure that we mention is this one of the pieces that makes Nub Snob special, or just maybe it's not the culture, or just kind of the way, right? The way is to fix things appropriately and to fix a mistake appropriately. One thing that I noticed that you guys did was during COVID, you made that really nice cement patio with fire pits outside and everything to allow people have a place to be, but then realized, we have to shovel this thing. And that's not so bad, except for that it cakes up around the tables and it cakes up around the chairs, and they have to move everything. And so it's a lot more work. And it's almost like without missing a beat, it was like the next year that was just done. It was a heated surface now, and nobody's out there shoveling, and there's never any snow or ice. But it just happened kind of silently and swiftly. Talk about that and maybe other things that we don't see and that would apply to just business in general, of what you don't see and kind of how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Okay. That's a great example, and it just did happen. And every year when we send out our letter for season passes, et cetera, we like to list all the things, the fun things that we did over the summer, improvements. Putting in heating coils and cement isn't something that's fun and sexy and attractive,
Yeah.
but it worked. So we try to balance our capital expenditures to that degree in the summer of what's kind of fun and what's not. I think the biggest change we've had to make was replacing the green lift. That was a major capital project. Let me back up. I have to say that removing the blue lift was probably another major historical legacy challenge
That was
for
like
a lot
you,
of people.
that was like you cut off one of my legs
Yes.
when that happened. But I did get one. I did get
Yeah,
one
okay.
of the blue chairs.
But
so.
aren't you okay now? Do you
Because-
ever think about it anymore?
You don't want to know what my therapist and I talk about, but yeah, the blue chair is part of it. No, I don't necessarily. I miss it from the nostalgia standpoint. The new. So for anybody who doesn't know about the green chair, all the chairs here at Nubs Knob are a different color, which makes it real easy for families to kind of find each other and easy to navigate the place. But it is the main lift right when you pull in, that pretty much everybody rides up. You might go get to something else after that, but it's the main lift. The blue chair was a faster, shorter chair that serviced only a few runs, and Ben kind of explained that to us, that back in the day the ski areas would kind of just put a ton of lifts out there, and kind of anywhere and everywhere. A lot of it was because they weren't as reliable, and maybe not as expensive as they are nowadays. But yeah, I mean, certainly the nostalgic piece is missing. You know, there's a lot of great memories of riding that with, you know, people who are now since deceased. But no, from a utility standpoint, absolutely not. You know, it's amazing how you make that new chair just a little bit faster, you know, a little bit easier to load, and you're up there in no time.
And the other thing that we had to be very careful about was our messaging when we did put in the new green chairlift, because our competition is all into high speeds. And it did not make sense in any way for us to put a high speed in. So anything we do here at Nubs Knob, it's always 100% defendable. And Ben and I talk about anything we do, any kind of change. I said, Ben, if I'm on the lift with someone, I have to defend it to the nines. And the green lift we didn't put in a high speed. It didn't make any sense. And I think our customer got it.
Well, I think they get it too, because you've done such a great job with communication. And that, I think, is one of the things that I told Ben, you guys were one of the influences of when we started to convert a lot of our business to video communication. Whether it was the raffling off of the blue chair to, you know, any messages during COVID, all done with video. You kept the rumor mill to a minimum, and you gave a little bit of extra information, which made everybody feel like they're on the inside. And I don't think that was contrived in any way. I think it was just the right thing to do. And so I think that people will see through everything that's baloney, right? Everybody's got a BS meter somewhere inside of them that works. And it might, you know, some people's work faster than others, but eventually the baloney gets all smoked out all the time. And I do think that that's part of your magic sauce here, is the communication / over communication, or more communication than what someone else would give. And I think you guys do that. I don't think the mega corporations can do it. I think there's a lawyer in between there that stops them and says, you know, let's not say that. Can you talk about that a little bit more and elaborate on that?
Yes, I can give you an example that happened a couple of years ago, which speaks to our management and our passion for our customers. 2 years ago, middle of holiday season, the green lift went down. It was middle of the day. We were just packed. And we didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know if we had the parts to fix it or...
Because this was brand new at the time, and so no one
Yes.
was truly the 30-year expert
Right.
on the
We
particular
get the new green
unit.
lift. We do practice runs on it, the whole thing. Everything's great. And then the first week we open for Christmas, we've got 2 failures. And it's like, what the heck? So Ben and Marty, our outside manager at the time, actually walked the parking lot, walked our road out to the Pleasant View, and talked to customers as they were driving up and said, just want you to know our green lift is having an issue right now, and I don't want you to get up here, park, buy a ticket, and be disappointed. We just want to be open and honest with you and tell you right now, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
And fortunately, within an hour and 10 minutes, it was up and running, but they got out in front of it. And I think we get out in front of it a lot when there's things like that going on. We were, when we closed for COVID, I'll never forget it. We were in the office. It was 5 o'clock on that Friday. And what are we going to do? And we all came together and said, you know what, what's best for our customer? And that kind of leads us to making really good decisions, what's best for the customer.
Yeah.
And so we closed.
Yeah, the other thing you had mentioned, and I've even witnessed it, is when somebody calls and asks for a snow report. You'll say, you know what, it did rain last night. It's still better than what you'll get somewhere else, but you're not sugarcoating it and saying it's something that it's not, because I think you do respect the fact that the person on the other end of that phone might be driving 4 hours from Detroit to get up here to do that, and the disappointment is not worth the the lift ticket price.
Right. I will make a mention too that while our snow farmers are awesome, the guys in the kitchen are fabulous. I mean, the whole team is remarkable. But I want to also say that our ski patrol is amazing too. Not that I want anyone to have to go through the ski patrol,
Of course.
but they are amazing in how they work, the system. So it's always good to have.
My kids have tested the abilities of the ski patrol.
Okay.
So yeah, we know about that. Let's talk about safety a little bit. One of our friends, his son-in-law is one of the inspectors for chairlifts in the state of Michigan. And they basically chuckle, when they come here, they know what they're getting, right? They know that you guys treat safety at the highest levels and your maintenance is off the charts. Can you talk about that and maybe relate it to other businesses where that could, where you could get away with, there's elements of the maintenance program that you exceed the state requirements.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. There are standards in the ski industry. Testing lifts, obviously, is the biggest one. And we go beyond the standards. So if, for example, the standard is the way they test chairlifts is you put a garbage container full of water on the lift, and you stop and start it as many times as whatever the requirements are. But we test every chair, and I think you're supposed to test every 5 chairs or something like that. So we go over and beyond. We also test every clip that goes into the chair at the beginning and end of the season. We don't just test a few like you're required to. We test every single one. As you mentioned, we go over and beyond. We do the same in our cafeteria cooking facility. We are up to date on every new requirement or code, whatever that comes along, and we go beyond in that too. Just cleanliness in general, we try to go above and beyond. I'm trying to think of an industry or something that's comparable where you might slip. And I mean, the parking lot is plowed, the sidewalks are shoveled, the bathrooms are maintained.
Well, I think you actually kind of said it. When you're delivering a value in excess of what is expected,
Right.
that's where the goodness really happens, right? And so some of those things are just done in places that no one can see, but you end up feeling it somehow. And I think that that's where, kind of like, it's almost like back to like the doing the right thing is never wrong.
Right. But we go over and beyond what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
you feel it, you feel it in other ways. I was just thinking about that, your family's company was in the safety business for cars. So
Yes.
there's kind of a theme here.
Yes, you
that-
picked up on that before I
That
did.
carries through.
Yes. And that kind of is
Are we going to have seatbelts on the? on
well,
the
now we have the bar.
Oh, right.
The bar is all new. So, as you know, the old chairlifts don't have the bar, but the new ones have to have the bar, which some of my friends still use them, even though we're only, 4.5 minutes on the lift.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's a good catch. Yes, we've always been trying to protect people.
Yeah. I think something else that translates from, let's call it, from ski business to regular business is this whole kind of knowing who you are, knowing what you do, and sticking to what you're good at, right? Because there's a lot of temptation, whether it's I'm in the IT business, and there's a ton of temptation of shiny balls all around the IT business. But in the hospitality business, you have a lot of that too. And this place has actually gone through some changes where you did dabble with certain things and then really said, no, this is what we are. We are a day lodge. This is what we do. Can you talk about that?
Yes.
4 nubs and then kind of parlay it into any recommendations for other businesses that are, distractible?
So as we grew as a company, we started on the front side, then we went to the south side, and then Pintail. But in all of that growth, we thought it would be really great to have a hotel. And we took a deep dive into looking into a hotel. We did have relationships with some of the surrounding inns where we would offer tickets maybe at a discount, or we take packages of tickets over to them. But we thought it would be really good to do that. And as I said, we took a deep dive and realized that's not really who we are or what we do. We also looked at maybe having a restaurant off-site, and we're not in the restaurant business. We are in the daily cafeteria food business. And that was something that my father said many, many years ago. He said, I want to be the best day area around. And we still hold to that, and it works for us because we don't have the expertise in the other fields. There are a lot of companies that go out on a limb and do other things, and they're not as successful. I can't think of anything up here right now. I'm looking at like the boating industry up here. They do what they do, and they do it well. You've got one that is strictly, smaller boats and sailboats, and the other one that's larger boats, and they own
Stick
what
to
they
what they're
do, and
good
they
at.
stick to what they do well.
Yeah. It's really the only way to become excellent,
Yes.
right? Is to specialize in some way. I mean, you don't have to be a specialist, in every single piece, but you really have to know who your market is, what you're serving, who you're serving, why you're serving them. Does the product and market actually fit? And I think that's important.
I think also, if I can add, in our business, we've always been, had downhill skiing. We've expanded a little bit where our race program is huge, but we have to be careful. Not everyone out here races.
Correct.
So you've got the recreational, you have the racer, and now our cross-country program is really grown in a huge way. And we're thrilled because the entry into cross-country is a lot easier than into downhill as far as expense and getting going and the whole and that has really taken off. And I'm proud of that. Our cross-country trails are amazing. And I like the fact that we offer kind of those 3 different approaches to outdoor winter skiing.
Sure. Are you a cross-country skier yourself?
I do dabble
Do
in
you?
that. And snowshoe.
Okay.
If you want a good snowshoe, go to the left of the purple and up to the race arena.
Okay.
And that's all you need.
That's all you need. Huh? Well, I'm going to go do some telemark skiing for about an hour and count that
Okay.
as my workout today.
Good for you.
This episode of the BLTnT podcast is sponsored by Auxium, business IT and cybersecurity designed to outsmart chaos. And powered by Juniper Networks. Automate your network with Juniper Networks and the Mist AI platform, the world's first AI-driven wired and wireless network. I would like to go back to the management style discussion. And why is it successful between you, your partners, obviously, but I think you're the most visible partner in the organization on a day-to-day basis. You're very much, I would call it nose in and hands out, right? So you know what's going on, but you don't meddle in the business of Ben, which is your general manager. So I struggle with this in my own organization, right? Where I'm the CEO of the organization. I have a president who is beyond my qualifications in running the organization. But every time my nose goes in, my hands start to pull in a little bit, and I have to tie them behind my back sometimes. Are you ever tempted to pull your hands out of your pocket?
I have to say, in the beginning, I probably was, before I really learned how ineffective that can be.
Okay.
So now I'm very aware. I listen to everybody. And I look them in the eye and I go, and I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm taking notes, and I'm glad you feel open enough to talk to me and that I'm approachable enough that you can talk to me. But I said, you need to take your ideas and you need to tell them to Ben, and I'm going to run everything through Ben. So talk to me all you want.
Yes.
But it's going to go through Ben because he's the general manager and he will listen to you. But I'm really appreciative of you sharing them with me, because every time you share something with me, I learn too. I'm not in the kitchen, slicing the onions or whatever. So tell me what you need, but just know it's going to go through Ben. And that path of communication, I think, works really well, and it's clear. And I've seen it in other organizations where it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And it's chaos.
Yeah. Did you ever was there ever a misstep that you made where you go, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, and had to kind of retract, or just deal with the consequences?
There were a couple mishaps that I didn't do personally, but I witnessed that happened, and it was a disaster. Yeah. If someone thinks they're helping someone, like, for example, someone had an old laptop and they thought, oh, I don't need this anymore. I'm going to give it to one of the staff at Nubs. But the general manager didn't know that this individual was giving the laptop to another manager. And that just created all sorts of,
havoc.
And that's a small example. There's
Sure.
a much bigger example that I don't need to share.
No,
but
that's okay.
yeah.
But Ben had talked a little bit more about this, and I would love to know how it impacted you. The good thing that came out of COVID was his ability to articulate and clearly communicate better with the team. Do you feel like you're more intentional on your communication paths, or maybe more intentional to move things back to Ben, or what might have come from that? And I'll give you the example, if you want a little color to that, is Ben had said that, he would have a conversation with someone and he'd be moving kind of so fast and go away, and he thought he had a certain conversation, but that person didn't translate the same way, or someone else thought they heard it differently. And so he's moved to a crew email that goes out every Monday for clarification. And he just said he's just taking every extra step to make certain that he's very clear, confirming back with the other person what they heard. Are you finding any of that with your communications?
I'm feeling that I am involving myself in more of the presence of the organization. And by that, I'll give you an example. So when we had an insurance meeting about a month and a half ago, I didn't have to be there. It was all of our management staff, and an insurance provider came in and was explaining different benefits. But I was there to show that I care, I'm interested, and I want to learn about the new benefits with all of you. And I think Ben's management style welcomes me into the fray more than the other management style was.
Okay.
So people feel I'm more interested, I care more, even though I'm not messaging them, or I'm just there to listen and hear it, just like you are.
Got it. But it feels like it's almost coming from that, and Ben's not at the bottom, but it's coming bottom up to you, though.
Yes.
It's coming from below you to you, the welcoming in. That's kind of an interesting way to put that. And I would say I share that with my president, where she's bringing me into an appropriate amount of information that I need, I never feel like I'm getting blindsided, right? In fact, I know when she calls me in the morning and says, she'll even start the call and say, this is not good news or nothing, everything's good. She'll start the conversation. So I don't even have to wait for that Oreo sandwich of, here's something good I'm going to say while I deliver you the garbage and then I tell you something good again. I'm getting right to the tone of this conversation is I'm about to deliver you bad news and here's what it is. And so I feel very plugged in. I never feel distracted or what's the word you used? You said he kind of pulls you in. I never feel pushed out, as the owner. And it's a challenging personification to take on, I guess you could say, because you want to make sure that you're putting all the right elements into things and that it's getting done right for the customer. And the way that the leadership can interpret your just one bit of overstep can just undo so many great things.
Right. And in a lot of the boards I serve on, I struggle because I am more of a governance board member.
Okay.
And I deal with a lot of boards that want to be management and operational, and it doesn't work. So I can see that kind of fine line as we're in this part of the discussion, where I want to be there and listen and grow and learn with them. But remember, I'm governance, I'm not management. So when you need to get into the nitty gritty, then you need to talk to Ben.
I like that. I mean, even putting a different word to it, right? Everyone's always so, the board sounds so ominous, right? When someone talks about the board. But then when you say, it's a governance panel, or you say just the word governance is a lot different than the board, or the owner, owner. And this is what the owner wants. Yeah. It's like, I'm a little level of an oversight here, peppering in my pieces of this, but I'm not here to pull all the puppet strings.
Right. And I also want to be aware of everything that's going on. Because of the small community, people will hear something on the street and they'll be like, well, I just heard this or that, or someone's, and sometimes I didn't know about it.
Right.
And I'd be like, oh yeah, we got it handled. And I had no clue what was going on.
Sure.
So I'm so sensitive to that because it happened before.
Yeah.
And I don't want it to happen again.
Yeah.
And so I very deliberately try to inform my brother Greg and my sister Yvonne and my mother, who's 92, but of all this like undertones, because I don't want them to be cut off guard out in the public.
They walk in and all of a sudden they're blindsided by it.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's it's an interesting piece of growth, and I think the way I'm hearing you say it is almost like, with all respect of previous management, this is something we learned with this management, right? And we just, every time we just get better and better. And so it's not necessarily even saying that the management is better. It's you're in a different spot. You've grown, you've learned, to be able to know, okay, I can even now tell the manager what I need, right? I feel like I'm a better owner now at this point, than I was 5 years ago.
Right.
And so I always think that's interesting. In fact, that's my advice to younger people is look at you from 5 years back and how many things do you just literally laugh at, and say, oh, I thought that was important, right? I thought whether it's
amazing,
whether it's a car, I thought that car was, so important, or I thought that title was so important. And then you grow up 5 years and you're like, wow, that was silly, right? The things that matter.
Yeah.
What would you say matters the most to you, at this stage in your career and your life, in terms of this business?
Like you said, I want to steward this business, not only for the employees, who I think really depend and are hopeful that it will stay in the family because they like working for our family. I want the insurance that it will be stewarded the way that we've been doing it for generations. I want it open to the G3s. But if someone organically comes up and really has the interest and has the skill set, I'm looking forward to that. And I'm looking forward to getting to a point where I can watch it too and just see it unfold. Because I think my dad saw it a little bit in me, but he didn't really see the whole product of me. He might have seen the flower, but he didn't see it open up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I wish he would have. And I'm hoping I can see what I'm planting really bloom.
Yeah, that's a really neat kind of wish, I guess,
Yeah.
if you will, right, or a dream. And what are you doing? What are you doing tomorrow? Now that you've said this, because I'm sure you've believed it, but what might you do different tomorrow now that you've proclaimed this to make sure that happens?
Well, what I'm going to do tomorrow, and what I've been doing actually just as recently as this week, is when something unusual comes up, I let my 2 children know. And not that I'm trying to say to the others, you're not privy to this information, but as a mother, I want my 2 children to learn from what I'm dealing with, so that if it ever happens again, or if it happens in a different way, they have a little bit more experience, a little more background to go, oh, okay, this happened once before. I can see that maybe we could tweak it and solve it another way. But at least they're familiar with the problem that might have come up before.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the real trick in your world is to remain as thoughtful as possible at all times, right? And then to message that as directly and quickly as you can to that next group, right? So that they can use it. Because I mean, I think we all have this wish for our kids, right? Anything we see our kids going through, we're like, I already know the answer to this.
Yeah.
I want to just give you the answer. I know you have to get there also, but there are some cheat codes, right, along the way. If you're willing to listen, I'm willing to tell you this, if you're willing to listen and believe, right? That this is how these things often go down. So it sounds like you're inspiring and working towards inspiring the actions of or your own actions, being an inspiration to your children, just like you had with your dad. So it's a wonderful legacy. One thing I want to go back to as well is the Matthew McConaughey book.
Oh, no. Okay.
And so,
All right.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about the age of how they keep staying the same age and whatever. No, but he talks about green lights, and in the world of acting, green lights means, a project gets greenlit and gets approved and moved on. I'm doing an interview with a fella named Sandy Gennaro. Sandy's a former drummer. He was Cyndi Lauper's drummer. Amazing story. His whole life really has this theme of doing the right thing has really kind of just always come together and worked out for him, and being very attentive to others and listening to them. And it just really has worked out. But he calls green lights God winks, so like maybe you're pulling in the parking lot and, the spot in front, kind of opens right up. But whether it's a green light or a God wink, what are some of the things that have kind of just, wow, that really worked out, along the way? What are some green lights for you?
That's a really interesting question, because some of my green lights are pretty private.
Yeah.
In all fairness, I think self-discovery and awakening in the last 10 years has been a real interesting green light.
Okay.
And when I say green, it has been really green. And it's like, go. Yeah.
Okay.
So it has to be self-discovery and really taking a look inside and out. And I don't know if it's age-related. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But just encompassing and being aware of all your surroundings and the universe and how supportive that is to going forward in a very honest and authentic way. I think being really authentic is so valuable to where I am today and how this organization is running too. That's a really multifaceted question, and I'm going to write that down and go think about it tonight.
Okay, what are my green lights, and what ones can I share publicly?
Yes.
I think that what you're saying there about, regardless of how you get there, right? It's just going deeper and being authentic. I think, and the word authentic is, I mean, everybody's using it, right? Every influencer
Yes.
on TikTok is using it. But if I just kind of take a step back and I look at who do I gravitate towards, it's not the bullshitter.
No, it
right?
isn't.
It's always the one who's authentic, and it's the person. It might not even be the person with the fanciest of something. It's the person who's totally true to themselves. And I made myself for breakfast something really odd, and I laughed this morning because I'm staying at our house up here by myself. My wife couldn't come up this time, and I had an English muffin with a piece of low-fat American cheese and cucumbers. And I was laughing because I'm thinking about Matthew McConaughey's book and how he's eating tuna fish sandwiches with extra pickles and ketchup on the side. And I'm going, and what's one of our attractions to him? It's this authenticness. And I'm laughing at myself going, I'm going to tell this today, like what I ate for breakfast. What a weird breakfast, but it was like,
I'm glad to learn that about you because people think that I eat weird, and I do. I put peanut butter on absolutely everything, and I'm always grabbing the peanut butter little packets because they put them away at breakfast. And I'm like, John, you got to put it in your
my
chicken noodle soup. Yeah, I do. And so I'm glad to know that about you because I eat very unusual combinations, but I think that's what makes life kind of fun.
Yeah, it does. It does. But I think that book, right? I mean, and just that like whoever you are, right? Whatever you do you, right? To a degree where it's not obviously harming somebody else. But, I think those are the people that we all look at, go, oh, wow, they're such an individual. They're doing it their way.
You made me think back. When I graduated from high school, you had to have a little saying underneath your name in the book.
Yeah.
And my saying was, be who you are and be that perfectly.
I love it.
And I mean, back then, that's how I kind of thought about things, and that's who I am.
I love it. I think I think we ended on that note.
Okay.
Say it one more time.
So be who you are
Yep.
and be that perfectly.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you
This
so
was
much,
a lot of
Matt.
fun.
All
Thank
right.
you.